recording on
Yay.
YouTube. We haven't started recording on Zoom yet though. Okay. So I'll just wait until that's actually got the red note doing it. Not the red note, the red little thing. Hi, Lorenzo.
Ciao.
Oh, okay, we're recording. Hello and welcome to Clown Power Live Series 2, Episode 1, and I'm Holly Stoppit. Yay! I'm a clown teacher and a teacher of fooling and a director of improvised, semi-improvised work and a drama therapist, and I have got an special privilege today of interviewing, chatting with, having a conversation with my fooling teacher. She's all very exciting. Before I get going, I'm just going to say a few things about Clown Power Live. Clown Power Live is a platform for clowns and fools to come together to chat about what it is to be a clown, what it is to teach clowning, what it is to learn clowning, what it is to perform. And so far, there's 7 episodes that have already taken place. We've been exploring lots of different aspects of the clown. And so Clown Power Live is produced by Zoological, and Zoological are Dave and Sasha. And they've just decided to make this thing happen in this time of coronavirus, to take this moment to provide a platform for clowns to meet and chat and to invite you all in. So this is all for you and it's all free and you're very welcome. If you would like to contribute to Dave and Sasha to keep this party going, then they've got a Patreon account. So you can put a little bit of money into their Patreon account and you'll find that patreon.com/zoological. And we have 2 Patreon subscribers who are basically sponsoring this episode. This episode is brought to you by Ricky Jaku and Duncan Cameron. So thanks to you both for giving us some dosh to make this thing happen. Yes. So you can find all the recordings on the zoological.ie website. You can also find them on YouTube. And if you join the Clown Power Facebook group, then you'll find lots of chat about the episodes there. So that's about Clown Power Live. Now today we've got an hour. I've got an hour to chat with Franki about her life and her work. And Sarah Slater says she paid too. Thank you, Sarah Slater, for what you've put into the pot. Thank you. About her life and her work and her practice, which is fooling. And just a little potted history of our connection. I first started training with Franki 20 years ago when I was 21. I did a 3-month course with her in Bristol in fooling with all kinds of people from all over Europe. We all came together and studied together in Bristol for 3 months, and then we put on an improvised show at the end. And I recently got back in touch with Franki when I was doing a research project about stage fright. I brought Franki in to be my facilitator for the 3rd part of a trilogy of solo shows that I made in 3 months. Who do that when they've got stage fright? Me. And we've kept in touch ever since. And so this time last week, I was chairing a panel discussion about mental health and clowning and circus, and Franki came on and responded from the audience, and Dave, the producer, said, let's get her on. So this is it. We've got Franki Anderson in the house. Hello, Franki.
Hello, Holly. Thank you. What a lovely introduction.
Oh, so nice to see you. So just for a little context, Franki's in Cornwall at the moment and I'm in Bristol. And I guess because this is for Clown Power Live, I guess a good place to start would be if you could give us a little explanation of what's the difference between a clown and a fool.
I don't know. Is the real answer. I have been listening to quite a lot of the other Clown Power recordings, and I come out of it going, I don't know anymore. I really don't. I've had to really readjust my reality around what is what a lot, and it brings me to back in the late 70s, 1970s, late, when I was teaching at the City Lit. And I was asked to teach clown because audiences called me a clown. And when I taught under the title of clown, I got criticisms, and I was very, very vulnerable to criticisms in those days, that what I was doing was not proper clown.
Oh.
That what I was doing, that clown was either circus clown. So I got criticism from the circus clown people. I wasn't teaching Auguste and Whiteface and blah, blah. And I wasn't teaching the Lecoq method. And this was it back in those days, that was clown. There was no other aspect to clown. And then with the convention, the clown convention, we had clown conventions in those days. To be a clown, you needed to paint your face on an egg and put it amongst all the other clown faces in a church in Dalston. And I went, well, which face do I paint on the egg? You know, like the clothes that I wear when I wake up in the morning. Who am I today? And what color do I want to wear and whatever? And my makeup changed according to how I felt. And until my changing was so much that I was restricted by the makeup, and so I just came down to the nose, and then it was like clown on or clown off. Punto. But it was this constant people trying to define whether what I was doing was clown or not. Audiences were clear. Audiences called me a clown. Those in the profession said I wasn't. So I went, I need another name. So I went to the thesaurus. I went, okay, another name for clown, please. And I chose fool, not knowing that I was actually choosing the name for what I actually was, this constantly changing figure. So for me, back there then, the clown was a fixed character. And I had a lot of trouble when I was directing, because those clowns in their fixed characters would say, my clown wouldn't do that. I'd see them doing something and I'd go, okay, can we have more of that? That's really funny, but my clown wouldn't do that. That's not part of my clown character. And I got so frustrated with it. I go, okay, I'm not doing that anymore, because what I'm seeing is so much more than that. So then I came to a kind of a definition of the clown being the beginning of the journey, that we enter into the world as a baby, knowing nothing. And then as a child, we copy what the grown-ups and the other children are doing because we want to fit in. We want to be part of it. How do you do that? It's the way we learn. We learn by copying and looking for approval and needing to be attached. But there comes a point when we need to start to develop our own individuation. And that for me was probably the point why I was getting the criticism, because life is saying, okay, move on now to the next stages in the life wheel journey, which keeps repeating. It keeps repeating, because I go into learning a new dance method or whatever, and I go in as a baby, how do you do it, and then I start to learn skills, and then I become proficient, and then I go, but the way that I want to do it is this, and then I become an expert in my way of doing that particular dance, and then I go, I can do that now, but I want to do that. Oh, what's that? And then I go back into clown again. So it could be arriving in a different country or learning a new skill or whatever, but this constant coming back to not being fixed in one place. So that's my old version. I found so many different feelings coming up when I'm listening to people going, clown could be anybody. And I go, but that's what I was doing back along. How dare you say that now when you kicked me out? Of course they didn't, but I was kicked out for being everything rather than just restricting myself to this one thing. So I don't know now. I don't know what is the difference between the clown and the fool. It's all one genre. I use the fool as a genre, the genre in which the clown lives, in which the trickster lives, in which the Heyoka Indian clowns live, the comedians, stand-up comedians, television comedians, film Chaplin and Keaton and Jacques Tati, and you know, it's a genre. There isn't you can't put something and go, that's what it is. If you look at Keaton, and who was my hero, and go, that is clown, because then you look at Jacques Tati and go, well, no, they're not the same. They are who they are. So then I come down to the fool. It's about being who you are, uniquely who you are, and the clown is about wanting to be accepted.
Oh, now that's nice. The fool is about being who you are, uniquely who you are, and the clown is about wanting to be accepted. So I teach both. I teach clowning and fooling, and I teach clowning before fooling. So I ask that people do my clown course first before they move into fooling. And the reason why I do that is, for me, clowning is about connection. So the clown is concerned with connection, with finding a way to connect and play. And so my training involves helping people remove the barriers to play, remove the barriers to connection, and to embody the clown archetype as a way of tapping into the playful self. And once they've got that, once they're starting to move into that and they're starting to feel confident with playing and playing with the audience, then the next stage of the training is the fool. So for me, the fool is the one that wears the clown's nose. The fool is for me, fooling is about truth. It's about telling the truth, or the truth as I know it. And so I can use the clown archetype if it's going to help me to speak my truth, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't necessarily have to be funny.
What is truth, Holly?
Well, yes, I mean, this is, we're getting right in there. We've only just started. We're getting right in there with what is truth.
Yeah.
What is truth? Well, I mean, I think similarly to you, I think I'm a chameleon. I mean, I change moment to moment. So I think my truth is momentary and changeable, and something to do with how I'm experiencing this present moment. Could be known as truth. Yeah. So, I'm just getting some little feedback there from the chat box. Somebody saying, I love that you can say, I don't know. How lovely. And I think that's, you know, coming back to my experience with training with you back then in my early 20s. It was the first time that I experienced a space where I was allowed to be my full self. Up until that point, I had to close down bits of myself because I didn't fit. You know, I was a child of the circus, and I did not fit into real life. And then I was an extra sensitive child, so I didn't really fit into the circus because I felt a lot, and so I didn't really fit anywhere. So actually, finding your practice when I was 21, it was the first time I felt like, oh, I'm allowed. Just as my little weird sensitive self, like I don't have to cover anything up or apologize for anything.
I mean, that's really what I started full-time for. There's kind of two factions on the full-time. One that's full-time was a circus school, and for me it was a fool school. And it was a place where, when people are ready to leave home, that they can find out who they are when they're not pleasing their parents or pleasing their peers or whatever. When people have a choice to choose who their tribe is, we are missing in our society an initiation process. And so you can have 60-year-old people who still haven't been initiated into adulthood. They're still trying to please their parents. They're still following, when I do that, I'm a bad person. And if I do that, then I'm a good person, because that's what they learned from their parents. Not necessarily that their parents told them that, but that's what they interpreted their experience with their parents. And for me, full-time was very much a place for that initiation out of the child state. You see, because I trained to be a teacher first, and failed terribly because I gave children their independence. I let them be who they are, and that caused havoc at home and school. So I got kicked out. I nearly got murdered by one of the mothers because her child, in her perception, loved me more than her. But the reality was that the child was just being herself. It was about loving herself and not, yeah. And so, but my parting gift from being chucked out of that work was to be given a copy of A.S. Neil's book about how he started Summerhill. And he got chucked out too for the same reason. And that's why he started Summerhill. It was a real gift to be, you're sacked, but don't stop. I just don't fit into schools, and I don't fit into out of school things in really rough environment. This was in a really rough environment where my classes, my workshops with these kids was the only one where the kids were participating fully and were involved, and all the other ones, the kids were running riot and wrecking the place. So then I kind of realized I can't work with children because they have to, what they choose to play within their family is the right thing. And it's wrong to go in and try to change that, because every child chooses exactly the right strategy to survive their childhood. So there needs to be something after childhood where we can undo all those strategies. And for me, that's what full-time was. And so it was a running away to join the circus, which was a running away to find myself and find my freedom and find what are my skill abilities. You know, when rather than mummy go, oh, come on down because you'll fall, and to get away from that and go, no, how can I go as high as possible? How high can I go without mummy pulling me back again? You know. So it was that. It wasn't about creating the industry of circus. It was nothing to do with that. We didn't have an industry of circus. So yeah.
But for those who you are in the dark, full-time was it the first ever circus school?
The first ever full-time circus school. That's why it was called full-time, because people that did John Lee and I's full school said, how can we do this full-time?
Full-time. And yeah, I mean I know loads of people who went through that and are still performing now. They're in their 50s and 60s, and they've built a whole career from performing. And so it was really pivotal for a lot of people that time. And it was called a circus and performance school, circus and performing arts school. But then it had this secret agenda, which was a space for young people to find themselves, to find acceptance. And John Lee's watching. John Lee's here.
Hello, John. and older people too. I mean, the fact is that we have a culture of uninitiated people. So you know, it's never too late to have a second childhood and have an initiation. So you go for your second childhood into clowning, and then you then start on your journey of individuation.
Yeah. And I can contest to that. Like a lot of my students, I've got a whole group of retirees. I've got a whole bunch of people who have had their careers, they've had their roles, they've done their work, and then they come to retirement and they're like, well, what the hell do I do? Well, obviously I learned to be a clown. Now's the time to learn to be a clown. And I find that people come to me, and I think we've spoken about this before. Do you find the same thing, that people come to you at times of transition, times of transformation? So I have people that are just coming out of university. I have parents. I have mums whose kids have just gone back to school, so they're just reclaiming themselves. I have retirees who are just going, well, what's this next bit of life about?
Starting a new journey. So stepping onto the next wheel of life. And you know, that journey can be a day's journey. You wake up here in the morning, in your clown state, because it's the beginning of a new day, you know. But there's also journeys, the life journey from our birth to our death, and then there's all these other wheels, all these cogs that are going around, and they're interconnected. It's quite fascinating to look at the world from that. And the end of the journey is to find out that we're all one. We are all connected. We are all of the same being. That, you know, the one God is not something separate from us. We are all it. We are, and also we are nothing.
Ha!
And at that point, we're back into the fool again.
Yeah, and this is what I'd like to ask you about. I think that for people who haven't experienced fooling as a performance mode, I think it would be maybe advantageous now to speak about what fooling looks like. So if I was to go to one of your shows in your studio, how might I experience that? What might happen?
I think you've done that, haven't you?
I mean, yeah, I've done it a few times now, Frankie.
Okay. The reason why I find the word fooling, difficult is because me fooling is different from you fooling and anybody else fooling. It's the activity of fooling, of being myself, and it's what I do. So I can be fooling even when I just go to walk on the beach, or I do the washing up. There is nothing, if my fool is present, as opposed to my my attachment to believing that I'm my ego, my somebody, that I am somebody. I am somebody. I am somebody. I'm important. I am, or I'm angry, and I have a right to be angry, and of course I'm angry, and it's somebody's fault, or whatever. That's it. I'm fooling now because I'm putting those selves on. But if I was stuck in one of those masks where I believe that is what it is, and my truth and my reality is that I'm angry and I have a right to be angry because that's wrong. The fooling bit is when I have a consciousness around it.
Aha. So you could say it's playing with aspects of the self with conscious awareness.
The aspects of ourselves are constantly changing because we are many. We are all, actually. When we get to the end of the wheel, we find out yet again, we're everything. But it's having the awareness, having the conscious, the wise fool, as opposed to the stupid fool, which is the wise and the stupid fool. But the wise fool is aware of the transient nature of who is present, and in fact, I can play my different selves deeper and clearer because I'm conscious of them than if they are running me, like I would call it, when there's an energy in me that I'm stuck in the mask. The mask is running me, which is actually normality. That's the difference. Normality and fooling, that's the two different states. I don't know if I'm making sense now.
Yes. The difference between reality and fooling is that consciousness of realizing.
I think fooling is reality, but not being attached to it. It's observing reality. There's an image of the fool sitting on the edge of the stage. The fool's position is like Arlecchino, sat on the edge of the stage, kind of going, well, what's going on here is that the Capitano wants to kill the one over there, but at the same time, he wants his daughter to marry the Capitano, and the daughter's actually in love with that one over there, and and usually because in the Italian days that they were speaking in a dialect that particular region didn't understand. So the fool is the one that goes, I'll translate it for you. I'll be the one to let you know what you need to know. You can get it from the sound of the voice and the body language and everything else, but there's certain details you might have missed. You know, I'm the one that is observing the stage, but I'm also the one that is relating to the audience. I'm talking to you. So the fool's position is in that no man's land between the audience and the players. But if I step back into the Capitan, then I want to fucking and that's, and I can do that with more reality than if I'm concerned about people might think that I'm really like that. So I'll be a bit of a, I'm the Capitan. I'm not really, I'm really a kind person, but I would stick a knife in somewhere, but I'm really a kind person. I'm only pretending. So that's when we move into the unreal world.
There's something here around the commitment, there's pleasure in being able to commit to these, especially the shadow parts of the self, in a way that you can't in real life, because in real life we have to keep our attachment with the people around us, or you know, or death, and so we can't show the kind of needy, greedy, mad parts of the self in real life. We have to pretend that everything's fine, but one of the aspects of fooling, both actually watching it and doing it as an art form, is you get to really jump in and explore those shadowy parts of the self that are, in general, not really allowed out to play. And there's a freedom in that. There's a catharsis in that. There's a
huge freedom, because there's a lot of energy locked up in not being. So we're only living a half life when we don't access those parts of ourselves. And actually, when we get to the root of the energy there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing bad about it. This, you know, it was just because I thought it was bad when I was little, or I got punished for it, or whatever, you know, that something told me that part of me is not allowed. And I still find myself doing it now, that I think my partner's angry with me because I've said blah blah. And so and then I go, okay, remember, don't say blah blah anymore. Okay, just don't bring that subject up, because it makes it, because it triggers something in, and you'd have a much more peaceful life, and you'll be accepted and loved if you don't bring that topic up. And then I catch myself, there's the fool, I catch myself, what are you doing? What are you doing? Are you trying to take part of you out of the relationship? And what kind of relationship is that going to be then? So it's that bit, the bit that goes, so what's going on here? The bit that notices that there's a character, there's a protector, the Capitan's coming in, I'm going to protect you, you know, and goes, ah.
We've got a message from Naomi Smythe, who's one of my students, but also she's doing her PhD, and she's talking about fooling and her PhD. She was wanting to know about this position of the fool, and she says, would you call this the commentation line? Is this to be in between the audience and the parts of the self?
I wish I'd never introduced that phrase, commentation line. I'll tell you why, because I hear students saying it to an audience, and of course the audience has no idea what do you mean commentation line. And I desperately tried to grab it back out of the vocabulary. The front of the stage, the bit that's that little bit, there's a fine line where I can make contact with the audience, I can look into the audience's eyes. It's the closest that I can get to the audience without the audience feeling like they're on the stage with me. If I go any further, the spotlight falls on them, and I'm in duet with them. So if I want to be in duet with the audience, then I cross that line that is called the edge of the stage. In the old days, when there was a stage, it was the edge of the stage. And the reason why I put this line in was because we were working on the street and working in different spaces where there wasn't an edge of a stage. And so I wanted people to feel this moment where that's the moment where you can't go any further into the audience without including the audience. So be aware of it. It's also the closest that you can get to meet them and talk with them. You can do it from the back of the stage, but you really have to work hard to make connection, to feel the audience, and to talk to them as if they're a friend on the other side of the coffee table. From the back of the stage, it's difficult. Not impossible, but you have to work on it. From the front of the stage, it's really easy. Hello. And so that place is the natural place for the fool to be. But the fool often appears up a ladder, hanging in a hammock. You know, it doesn't need to be there. You just have to work harder at making that magical connection. Is that answering the question?
That has. She's very happy. She says that articulates the energy of that space very clearly. So at this juncture, I can say for the people who are listening this live recording on Zoom that you can ask questions in the Q&A box. I am sort of keeping an eye on them, but really wanting to attend to what Franki is saying. So I'm sort of flashing my eyes over here from time to time to see if I want to incorporate any of this stuff into the conversation. There's this comes from Peter. I think maybe we'll bring this in now. Nothing wrong with acting out our shadow parts, but where can we do this? In workshops, rehearsals, performance? Don't we still have to make sure that the audience is with us and buying it all?
Acting out our shadow parts. What is acting out? When a child is acting something out, it's because something is looking to be resolved in them. It's funny that we're not allowed to be needy. We're not allowed to act out. There's all these negative things where we have to push parts of ourselves away. But we are actors. We are acting something out. The process of theatre is acting something out. And the way that I see the Fool's Theatre is that it's a kind of a shamanic theatre where we act out, we the players act out these energies from the audience, so that the audience can start to accept parts of themselves, because they're seeing them being played with and not shamed. Now, the players can't do that if they don't process those parts themselves. If the players get stuck in shame, I think that the thing that is all of us players fear is having a shame attack on stage. So therefore, for me, the workshop process, or the space that I create for people, is a place where shame can be, but it's held in a way where the player can understand where that shame comes from and undo its root, heal the root of where that shame came from. So yes, then we're moving into the realm of therapy. But I think that theatre was the beginning and therapy came after, because theatre stopped doing its job.
That's an interesting proposition. I think I mean I can also add to that. I can say that in with my troupe, and there's a really marked difference between the quality of play we do privately in our training sessions and publicly on the stage for an audience. And so like Franki says, that it's important with a public audience that you're not playing with stuff that you haven't already played with privately, processed privately, because if you're particularly triggered, if you're working with particularly triggering material, it's really difficult to keep a handle on it, and it's really difficult to keep shame out of the space if stuff is very, very alive and very has a lot of charge about it. So I mean, I guess my trip and the training that I do is very much built on the same premise of what I did with Franki 20 years ago. Is we do a lot of private training. We have a lot of time together as a group to train together, to explore together, to build those bonds of trust together, so that we hold each other. We are an ensemble of solo performers, and it's the ensemble which is where the magic happens. It's the ensemble which is where every single one of their soloists are held in a process, so that when they come to perform on the stage solo, that it's not just them performing solo, they're coming out of an ensemble to perform solo. And then, you know, if it does so happen that something comes out during a public performance, then we have the ensemble afterwards. We do an after show kind of process where we come back together, and we can process anything that needs processing.
That sounds so beautiful. You know, it's when I listen to you, Holly, it's like I've got tears in this little hood in my eyes here. It's getting old, getting hoods over your eyes. It's full of tears. It just feels like, oh, it's taking care of ourselves. You know, when I get students saying, you know, very often in a first workshop going, but you couldn't put this on stage. And I can go, well, yeah, but if you were rehearsing a play, you wouldn't put the first rehearsal on a stage either. You know, the actors spend months in the rehearsal studio devising and honing and cutting and shaping and developing and researching to actually bring a play, a choreographed play, to fruition. And yet,
that's interesting, isn't it? Because then at the very beginning stages, when I'm first teaching fooling, so I run a 5-day course where you learn the fundaments of fooling, even then they drag a public audience into that space with them, and an imagined public audience from the first time they get on the stage.
Yeah, and that's really a lot of the work. Is like, be the fool, sat on the edge of the stage and look at what's really going on. What's actually going on here? We're not trying to deliver this to a public audience. We're trying to observe what's going on. What's really happening?
I have a question here that fits in with this, from Susie, who knows you from Susie from City Lit in the 80s. Oh, Susie Maxwell Stewart.
Wow.
She says, what would you say is the edge of the stage nowadays? And after Corona, how significant will the edge of the stage be?
I don't know anything about after Corona because I don't know what the fuck's going on at the moment. First question, what do I think the edge of the stage is? It's that feeling, feeling. I feel it in my gut when that's the edge of the stage. It's also the edge when I'm on my edge. It's also the when I'm on the audience's edge. It's if I go back to the shame thing, the reason why it's really important to be able to name shame and understand what shame is because shame because of the work we do in ensemble work or workshops or whatever, we move our shame boundaries out, that we don't get affected by shame because we heal it. But that doesn't mean to say that the audience is not going to be affected, as you say, with taboo subjects and things. So what I as a player need to feel is when there's shame in the audience, if somebody's been triggered in the audience, I need to then be able to put that trigger on the stage and play it. Take it out of the audience. Don't leave it sitting there festering. To actually be able to go, oh, I shouldn't have said that. To be able to step into, oh my God, how could you say that, Frankie? You know, to be the voice for that member of the audience.
Oh, what I love about that as well, what I love about your process is you do that in a non-shaming way. So a lot of audience interaction that I've experienced through working on the street for all those years and working in comedy clubs is a lot to do with taking the piss out of the audience member, actually, you know, increasing the shame. And I, you know, having learned from you, Frankie, and having witnessed you play, I love how you do that. You sense there's shame in the audience. You don't direct it at that person in the audience. Go, look, I see you're in shame. You've got shame right now, because that's just going to exacerbate it. You take it and you filter it through your own experience, and you find your own version of shame, of shamed, the shame to be shamed.
Oh,
and you point that out.
Yes. So that's the edge. It's the fool it's constantly on the edge of everything. It's to be able to feel, and my gut is my great teacher. I kind of imagine that I have a cauldron in my belly, and which is informing me what's going on. So feeling it. And I feel it if I'm just in a duet talking to another person, that I can feel, well, actually that my stammer was my original teacher. Careful, careful, careful. You're triggering somebody. Don't speak now. And I'm still going, oh, but I wanted to say, and so I was in this, you know, this world where I'm trying to speak, but I can't get through my barriers. So, but if I put that barrier down in my belly, then it starts to speak to my gut brain rather than to my frightened child part. So that's the edge. It's like fool. I think the fool is on the edge. That's image of the fool stepping off a cliff. It's not stepped off the cliff. It's not falling. It's not going, oh, I mustn't step off the cliff. It's stepping off. It's following the bliss, the butterfly, the chameleon, the change. And it's got a little bit of the dog warning, going, careful, you're stepping off a cliff, biting the arse. You know, I've actually been bitten by a dog in Bristol on my arse because I had prejudiced thoughts about its owner. Yeah. So that fool image absolutely says it for me, that one foot is on solid ground of the known, I know this, and the other foot is I haven't got a fucking clue what's going to happen next, and to be on that edge.
What supports you to be able to stand there with one foot on solid ground and the other foot hovering in space? Like what resources do you bring in to support you to be able to really be in that moment?
It's a good question. And at the moment, I don't have an answer. I don't know. I live in a very beautiful place. That really helps. I live where I want to be and in an environment that I grew up with. Yeah, Mother Nature helps me, I guess. When I was a child, I lived in the same environment that I live in now. It's on a different coast, but nature's the same here. And I had a very difficult childhood, but what supported me when I was a child was being in nature and being mirrored by nature. So where my feelings were not mirrored and held by my caregivers, they were mirrored and held by nature. Right now. Yeah.
Oh, it's lovely to hear.
And I always thought when I left Pembrokeshire that I was going to find my tribe, because I was very alone there in terms of like-minded people, including my family, that I was off to find my tribe. And I thought I was going to bring my tribe back to Pembrokeshire, to this beautiful place where Mother Earth is just so prevalent, and live in a community there. But then when I visited I went to London first and then to Bristol, heading west. When I visited, I just found myself so triggered by the Welsh accent. I know you're from Wales, but you don't speak with a Welsh accent. When I went to Pembrokeshire, and particularly the Pembrokeshire accent, which is mixed with Irish, that's all that, you know, I'm not okay. I'm English. I'm a foreigner living in Wales. I shouldn't be there. We hate the English. I'm a witch because I healed a jackdaw that had broken his wing, and so the jackdaw travelled around on my shoulder. Well, I had no idea what image I was putting out then. And it was just like all these, and I stammered, and my sister's a little bit brown, so she could come from Indian or something stock. We do have the same father. There is Sicilian blood in us, and my sister's come out browner than me. But we didn't, you know, we didn't look like we came from the same stock. My mother was a single parent, and she was in business, and it was like everything was wrong with the family that I grew up in. It was like, and so I grew up with it's like I'm wrong. So it was, the idea of going back and living there, just where I can't live in that environment. I can't live with that feeling. As my life is going on, I'm working through all of those feelings, and I'm feeling more like I could go back and live there now. But what I found was when I came to this part, which is directly south of where I grew up, was that I found that it's home with Mother Earth. I am home here, and I don't have the Welsh accent triggering me. Nothing wrong with the Welsh. I love the Welsh, and I will defend them with my capitan. But in terms of my child feelings, there was that. So yeah, thank you for asking that question. That's really surprising that that's what came up. Yeah, Mother Earth. To be able to go and put my feet in the sea, and the mood of the sea mirrors back to me my mood.
This is what I bring a lot of this question into the work that I do, because I think the work doesn't just happen on stage. It doesn't just happen in the workshops. If you are committed to the life of being a clown or being a fool, then the work happens every day. And Frankie talks about the cauldron. What you bring into your cult is what you have to play with. And I think about it as filling the well, as needing to fill the well. And so I'm often alongside the kind of the formal performance training, I'm also doing resilience training with my students, of kind of helping them to cultivate a really rich life of whatever's going to support them to be able to do this. Oh, I have a question. There's been a few questions. Thanks for your questions. I am trying to integrate them as we go, and apologies if I can't get to all of them. There's one from Jyoti.
Hello, Jyoti.
Schooling always improvised? Hi, Frankie, it says.
Is it always improvised?
Yeah.
Okay. No. So this is where we come to fooling. What I do on stage, as opposed to what I do in my life, which is also fooling, hopefully a lot of the time, but what I do on stage is, it came as a result of when I left full-time, and I had this big zero, here I am at the beginning again, and I asked myself what I wanted to do now. And what I'd had about 3 or 4 years break from performing at all. Well, full-time became such a full-on job that I actually did less and less performing in the world. So my old show kind of faded away, and my old show was developed alongside my growing children. So I would create shows that would work in schools, because then I could be booked at the same hours that my children were in school. But then I was in a position of like, well, I don't need to do that now. So what does my player want to do now? And my 8-year-old jumped up and said, I want to do my show. I thought, what's your show then? I want to do the show that I did when I was 8, and I didn't have the skill to hold the audience, and I really have something important to say, and Mummy and all her friends that were in the audience were just chatting together, and they weren't paying attention, and I was furious, and I couldn't express it, and I didn't know how to get the attention of the audience. And now, Frankie, you've got all of the skills. I want to do my show now. So when I was 40, I did my 8-year-old show.
Oh.
8-year-olds do not have a script. They go on stage with a feeling, with an energy. It's not concrete. Later on, I went into writing scripts. I wrote scripts for fairy tales. I wrote scripts that, I had my company, and I wrote my own scripts, and I rewrote fairy tales and blah blah blah, and worked a lot with scripts and stories, which I'm coming back to. What is story? What really is story? But that's another story. So, and I get frustrated because the improvisation also then works in the workshop process, but it's not it. it is what the fool in the individual person most wants to do, be, play. So if when I said, so what are you going to do now, Frankie? And Frankie turned around, where I want to play Hamlet, and I want to tour the whole world playing Hamlet, and I want to do it, and I want to memorize the whole script, and I want to do it exactly the way that Shakespeare had written it, then that would be my fooling. Of course, there is improvisation in it, because we are improvising all the time, every conversation. You know, we don't speak with a script, although actually, yeah, some people do it. Actually, some people I've heard you tell that story before, exactly the same way. I've heard you. And so we do have in us. We have scripts in us, the stories that we keep telling ourselves and others, and we have the other sides where we step off the edge and we allow ourselves to speak out of the moment. So the improvisation bit, I don't use the word, I use spontaneity, being present, being in the moment, is what every performer needs. So whether they're stuck to the script of Hamlet, or whether they are stepping on a stage with nothing, like the 8-year-old child, the improviser needs to be there, needs to be present in the moment, responding to the moment. So if a pigeon flies down and walks across your stage when you're busking, pay attention to the pigeon. Be the pigeon. If you want to bring the audience's attention back, that can be a pigeon too.
Oh yeah, to add to that, I'd like to add to that. So for my stage fright project that I did 3 years ago, I wanted to look at my stage fright to see what it was that was giving me such a hard time. So I stopped performing at the age of 30 because my stage fright was just impossible to live with. So I stopped and I retrained as a drama therapist, had 7 years off, and then I came back to do this project, and I brought Frankie into my third show of the trilogy. I made 3 shows in 3 months. Frankie supported me on the third one, and what we did together, what Frankie introduced me to, was assembling an inner cast. So that was the only structure I had on stage with me. I knew that I had various masks, as we call them in fooling, or you might call them characters, and I knew where they were on stage, so they were all placed on stage, but I didn't know what was going to happen. I didn't know what I was going to say, I didn't know what I was going to do, but so we'd spent time in process together to explore who are these characters and what would be a configuration that would serve me in it to be able to be spontaneous and free on stage. And that was literally all I had in place, was just knowing where those characters are. And I played for 1 hour and 45 minutes, a solo improvised show, and it was amazing.
Well.
And since then, like, something amazing has happened with the stage fright, and I appear to be a TV presenter now, which, you know, this would never have happened years ago. And yeah, a lot of it is to do with, you know, that process of having really looked the stage fright in the eye. But just to answer your question, yeah, it's possible to bring bits of structure into fooling. You could bring bits of costume in, you could bring little sets.
And I do. I mean, when I started, in the beginning, I did a 1 hour show, 1.5 hour show, 2 45-minute pieces. And the first half, the first 4:45 was really asking the question, who's turned up on my stage today? And so I would just literally grasshopper that, thank you, if the Peter that is there is the Peter that I think he is, he gave me the word grasshoppering from one character to another without having to have a story between them, without getting stuck into making a story. There's just this character, and it's this character there, and then there's that character there, and they may have nothing at all to do with one another, preferably not. And the second half, I would ask the audience for the title of a fairy tale, and then I would step on the stage, and those characters, because they are present, would then tell the fairy tale. So there was a structure of the first half and the second half, and those two different, one was working with the separate personas that are present, that have turned up on that day to play on that stage, which are probably in the audience, because I think that my player gets energized by aspects that are in the audience. I want to play the audience's personas for them without asking for them. So I kind of stand on the edge of the stage and I let them project on me and then I step into that and then put it into story. And I think I'm going to do that. My next show is going to be that one again. That I'm going to do that same format that I did back when I was 40. That was 1992.
Oh. I'm just now mindful of the time. We've got 5 minutes left of this discussion, and I'm also mindful of all these questions that have come that we haven't had a chance to answer them all. But maybe we just finished with this one from Naomi, who says, have you had any thoughts about the next couple of years having limits on the ability to be breathing and moving in space with others? What is necessary about it to full play? How can we approximate it?
Oh, you're going to have to give me that one again. Living and breathing was what I heard.
Have you had any thoughts about the next couple of years having limits on the ability to be breathing and moving in the space with others? What is necessary about it to full play? How can we approximate it?
I haven't been thinking about approximating it. I'm not interested in approximation, I don't think. I don't know. I don't know what I'm going to be doing next. I mean, really, honestly, listening to all these wonderful clown people talking, including all the people that I was so impressed with when I was younger, like Avner and the Flying Karamazov brothers, and it was just like I've just seen the sea of people coming in front of me. Oh, wow! And just, and me setting out on my journey, and I'm just kind of hearing so many people saying what I've been saying is I don't need, do I need to do this anymore? I don't know. It's kind of, it's again being on that edge I feel like right now I'm in the same place as I was when I came out of full time into a great big zero, that I've stepped out, and I know that I'm still alive and I'm still passionate. There's still stuff in me. I'm not about to get the coronavirus and die. I know that because there's something very alive in me, so alive in me. I don't know what it is yet though, because I'm in this zero state, and I'm watching the fact that I'm quite grateful to actually have, I don't have to make plans. Last year I said I wasn't making plans because I stepped into doing a training with Dr. Gabor Mate, and I spent the whole year, that was my primary thing. And now that I've finished that training, how does that work go together back into the work that I was doing before, and will it change? And when I think about the work that I did before 1992, that is the work leading up through the City Lit into full time, and then there was the zero where I stopped working at all, and I went into a therapeutic process, really deep process, came out with my solo show. Then I was asked to start teaching again, and I went, well, I don't know what I'm going to teach. I could only show you what my process that I've just been doing is. And then I refined that down. I feel like I'm in the same kind of place now. I don't know. I mean, Holly, you're doing it. You're doing the work. It's fantastic. I don't need to do it anymore.
Hey, it's mine. It's all mine now. All fooling is mine.
But it's like I'm really on the edge of something new, and so I'm very grateful that nobody's asking me to make plans. It's a gift for me that nobody is saying, that actually those people that were booked to come and work with me from Germany had to cancel because everything's been cancelled. The few things I did have cancelled, and I kind of thought it was going to happen anyway. But I had nothing to actually go, actually, I don't think we're going to be doing this. So I'm really pleased to be in this world of no plan.
Yeah, and here we sit, and we're about to come to an end of this hour that we've had together, and we've arrived back in the big fat zero, which is where everything begins and ends for the Fool. The Fool of the card in the tarot deck has the number 0. It lives outside the pack. It can take on any form or no form at all. And we end up with a 0. And just
can I come and do your workshop?
Yeah, you're welcome anytime, anytime. So just to finish, I'd like to, thank you so much for Dave and Sasha for creating this platform. And if you want to support them, you can chuck some money into their Patreon account. You'll find them at patreon.com/zoological. Just chuck in £5 and that'll just keep this going. We've got loads more exciting panel shows coming up on Wednesday at 9 p.m. UK time. We've got Ollie Crick. It is doing a panel on how is Comedia going to save the world. So what Frankie was talking about earlier, those masks of Arlecchino and Capitano, they were the Commedia dell'arte masks from Italy. And Ollie Crick is a performer and also like a doctor of Commedia. So he's going to bring together a panel and they're going to talk about Commedia. So that's on Wednesday. And these talks happen every Wednesday at 9 o'clock and every Sunday at midday UK time. So tune back in. If you want to see any of the other recordings, go to zoological.ie, the website, or you can go to the YouTube channel and you can see all of these talks so far.
Is it possible for me to have a copy of the questions?
Oh, I don't know. Dave and Sasha, do you have a way of saving the questions? Yes, says Dave. Yes, and the other thing is, if you want to get hold of Frankie, if you're keen to get in touch with her, drop me an email and I will pass it on. So you can find me at hollystoppit.com. That's on my website, so you can just look up Holly Stoppit and you'll find that on my website. And yeah, I'm really happy to pass stuff on to Frankie if there's only stuff that, if there's any stuff that you were gagging for us to talk about but we couldn't get around to it today, send us an email and we'll respond. What else do I need to say? Is that it, Dave? Is that all I need to say today? I think so. Yes, says Dave. Thank you so much everybody for tuning in, and thank you so much Franki Anderson.
Thank you, Holly. That's beautiful. We should do this more often.
Yeah, let's do this again. Thanks everybody. Oh, still recording.
Oh, we're still recording.
Oh, no, we stopped.
Still live on the